Picture a ship leaving a harbor, its hull cutting through the morning mist with absolute precision. This vessel has a captain at the helm, a crew that knows their duties, and a destination marked clearly on the navigational charts. The engines hum with purpose, the rudder responds to every calculated adjustment, and the compass points true north. This ship will arrive at its intended port 9,999 times out of 10,000 attempts. Now erase that image from your mind and conjure another vessel. This second ship has no captain standing watch, no crew manning the stations, no charts spread across the navigation table. Someone simply starts the engines and lets it go, releasing it into the vast expanse of water with nothing but momentum and chance to guide it. What happens to this ship? It doesn't even leave the harbor. It drifts aimlessly for a few moments, then crashes violently against the rocks at the harbor's edge, its hull splintering, its potential destroyed before the journey even begins. Earl Nightingale, the Dean of Personal Development and one of the most penetrating minds of the 20th century, observed something that should shake you to your core. 95% of men are the second ship. They are vessels without guidance systems, drifting through life with their engines running, but with no coordinates programmed into their internal navigation. They have power, they have potential, they have all the mechanical capability to reach any destination on Earth, yet they will never leave the harbor of mediocrity because they lack the one thing that transforms a drifting wreck into a guided missile, a clear, definite target, and the mental mechanism to reach it. Earl Nightingale earned a title that no self-proclaimed guru or modern motivational speaker has ever legitimately claimed. He was called the Dean of Personal Development, not by his own marketing department, but by an entire generation of seekers who recognized in his voice something that transcended mere inspiration. In 1956, Nightingale recorded a message that would become the only spoken word recording ever to achieve gold record status, selling over 1 million copies in an era when people bought vinyl records of music, not philosophy. That recording was titled The Strangest Secret, and it contained a distillation of thousands of years of philosophical and spiritual wisdom compressed into a framework so elegant, so devastatingly simple, that it could be expressed in 6 words. Why did this recording achieve what no other spoken word message had achieved before or has achieved since? Because Nightingale did not merely inspire, he revealed. He pulled back the curtain on the operating system of human consciousness and showed his listeners the guidance system that differentiates the ship with a captain from the ship without one. He demonstrated with the precision of an engineer and the wisdom of a sage how to transform yourself from a drifting wreck battered by every wave of circumstance into something far more powerful, a nuclear submarine moving beneath the surface chaos, guided by instruments so precise that external storms become irrelevant. The difference between the 95% who fail and the 5% who succeed is not talent, not education, not even opportunity. It is the presence or absence of this guidance system, and Nightingale possessed the key to installing it. In this exploration, you will not receive vague encouragement or abstract philosophy that leaves you inspired for an hour and unchanged for a lifetime. You are going to learn step by methodical step how to program the guidance system that Earl Nightingale discovered and taught. You will understand the strangest secret not as a catchy phrase, but as a functional law of mind, as reliable as the law of gravity and as powerful as the law of attraction. This is not theory. This is the operational manual for the autopilot that can navigate your life toward wealth, achievement, and the progressive realization of your deepest aspirations. The ship is already built. You are that ship. The engines are already running. Your mind is generating thoughts every waking moment. The ocean is already waiting. The universe of opportunity surrounds you right now. The only question that matters, the only question that separates you from the wreckage on the rocks or the triumphant arrival at a distant golden shore, is this: have you set the coordinates? By the end of this transmission, you will know how to set those coordinates with such clarity that success becomes not a struggle, not a gamble, not a matter of chance, but an automatic function of a properly programmed guidance system. The struggle ends when the autopilot engages, and you are about to learn how to throw that switch. Here is the secret that Earl Nightingale distilled From the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, Emerson, and every great teacher who ever walked the earth, we become what we think about. 6 words, 6 simple, devastating, world-altering words. You might hear those words and nod in casual agreement, filing them away with 1,000 other inspirational quotes you've encountered and forgotten. That would be a catastrophic mistake, because these 6 words are not a suggestion or an encouraging thought. They are a description of the most dangerous law in the universe. Dangerous because it operates with absolute impartiality, with mechanical precision. Whether you understand it or not, whether you believe it or not, whether you use it consciously or allow it to use you unconsciously. When Nightingale says, "We become what we think about," he is not speaking metaphorically. He is describing a cybernetic process, a feedback loop between thought and reality that functions exactly like the guidance system in a missile or the autopilot in an aircraft. Your dominant thought, the mental image you hold most consistently in your conscious mind, is the coordinate you have typed into the GPS of your subconscious. Once that coordinate is entered, once that image is impressed upon the deeper levels of your consciousness, the ship must go there. Not might go there. Not could go there, must go there. The law does not care whether the coordinate you entered represents success or failure, wealth or poverty, health or disease. The mechanism is neutral. If you program the guidance system with an image of financial abundance, of meaningful achievement, of the person you wish to become, the mechanism will navigate around every obstacle, will correct for every deviation, will work day and night to close the gap between your current position and your programmed destination. And this is the razor's edge on which your entire life balances. If you program that same system, with images of fear, with constant thoughts of what you don't want, with mental pictures of failure and lack and limitation, the guidance system will navigate with equal precision toward those coordinates. The machine has no conscience, no judgment, no preference for good coordinates over bad. It simply obeys. The implications of this law are so profound that most people spend their entire lives in unconscious violation of it, wondering why they struggle while others seem to glide towards success. They are like a pilot who doesn't understand his instrument panel, randomly pushing buttons and pulling levers, then expressing shock when the aircraft doesn't take him where he vaguely hoped to go. Nightingale understood that the human mind is not a passive recipient of experience, but an active, goal-seeking mechanism. This is the principle of cybernetics applied to human psychology. You are a self-correcting system that automatically moves toward the target you hold in your mind. When you wake up in the morning, and your first thoughts are worries about bills, fears about failure, resentments about your circumstances, you have just programmed the guidance system for that day. You have entered the coordinates of lack, struggle, and frustration, and the mechanism has no choice but to navigate toward those coordinates. Every thought you think is either moving you toward your goals or away from them. There is no neutral territory in the realm of mind. The person who thinks constantly about debt becomes more deeply entrenched in debt. The person who thinks constantly about sickness experiences more sickness. The person who thinks constantly about failure encounters more failure. This is not punishment from an angry universe. This is the natural operation of a law that Nightingale called the strangest secret, because most people live their entire lives without discovering it, despite the fact that every spiritual tradition and every practical philosophy has been trying to tell them this exact truth for millennia. Now consider the inverse application of this law, and you will begin to see why the 5% succeed while the 95% struggle. If the guidance system automatically navigates toward the dominant thought, then the person who maintains a clear, vivid, persistent mental image of success, who thinks constantly about their goals, who holds in their mind the person they are becoming rather than the person they currently are, that person has programmed the autopilot for success. They don't have to struggle and strain and force every action. The guidance system takes over. Their subconscious mind begins to notice opportunities they would have missed. Their intuition guides them toward the right people, the right books, the right circumstances. They develop the skills they need. They attract the resources they require. Not through magic, but through the natural operation of a goal-seeking mechanism that is now pointed in the right direction. This is what Nightingale meant when he said success could be automatic, not that it requires no effort, but that the effort becomes directed, purposeful, efficient, guided by an internal compass that never stops working, even when you sleep. The successful person is not smarter than the failure. They have simply learned to operate the guidance system, while the failure doesn't even know the guidance system exists. They are both ships with the same engines, the same potential, the same access to the same ocean. The only difference is that one has a captain who understands navigation, and the other is adrift. This secret is strange, not because it is complicated or difficult to understand, but because it is so simple that people refuse to believe it could be the answer they've been seeking. They want success to be mysterious, to require secret knowledge or special connections or extraordinary luck, because if success is simply a matter of controlling your dominant thoughts, then they have no excuse for failure except their own mental laziness. Nightingale strips away every excuse, every rationalization, every blame placed on circumstances or other people, and presents you with a truth so clean and sharp it cuts through decades of conditioned thinking. You are where you are because of what you think about. If you don't like where you are, change what you think about. If you want to be somewhere else, think about that place so consistently, so vividly, that your subconscious accepts it as a command and begins to navigate toward it. The guidance system is already installed. The autopilot is already functional. The only question is whether you will learn to program it consciously and deliberately, or whether you will continue to program it by default, allowing whatever random thoughts, fears, and cultural conditioning happen to drift through your mind to set your course. The ship is yours. The destination is your choice. But you must choose, because not choosing is itself a choice. It is the choice to drift, to crash on the rocks, to become part of the 95% who never discover what they could have become. Earl Nightingale drew heavily from the field of cybernetics, the science of self-regulating systems, to explain why we become what we think about is not merely a philosophical concept, but a description of how the human mind actually functions at a mechanical level. Cybernetics, developed in the mid-20th century by scientists studying guidance systems in missiles and torpedoes, revealed a profound truth. A mechanism can be designed to automatically correct its course toward a target, adjusting for wind, resistance, and deviation without conscious intervention. The torpedo doesn't try hard to hit the target. It simply makes continuous micro-adjustments based on feedback, and those adjustments inevitably bring it to the target unless something destroys it first. Nightingale recognized that the human nervous system operates on exactly the same principle. Your subconscious mind is a goal-seeking mechanism. It is a servo mechanism, a device that receives a target image from your conscious mind and then automatically works to bring your external reality into alignment with that internal image. This is not mysticism. This is the biology of achievement. When you hold a clear mental image of a goal, when you think about it consistently, when you visualize it vividly, when you impress it upon your subconscious through repetition and emotion, you activate this servo mechanism. Your subconscious then begins to solve problems, notice opportunities, and guide your actions in ways that move you toward that goal, often without your conscious awareness of the process. The critical insight that separates the successful from the unsuccessful is this: the servo mechanism is always active. It never turns off. It is always seeking a goal. The question is not whether your goal-seeking mechanism is working. It is always working. The question is what goal you have given it. If you give it a clear, positive, definite target, such as I am building a business that generates $100,000 in annual revenue, the mechanism will navigate toward that target. It will cause you to wake up with ideas. It will direct your attention to information you need. It will create a magnetic quality that attracts the people and resources necessary for achievement. But if you fail to give it a clear target, or worse, if you give it a negative target by constantly thinking about what you fear, what you lack, what you don't want, the mechanism will navigate with equal precision toward those negative outcomes. A person who thinks constantly, I don't want to be poor, has not given the servo mechanism a positive target. They have given it an image of poverty, and the mechanism will dutifully navigate toward that image. The subconscious cannot process negation, it only receives images. When you say don't think of a pink elephant, your mind must first create an image of a pink elephant in order to understand what not to think about. Similarly, when you think, I don't want to fail, your mind creates an image of failure, and that becomes the coordinate the guidance system locks onto. This explains one of the great paradoxes that Nightingale observed in human behavior. People often achieve exactly what they fear most. The person who fears poverty often becomes poor. The person who fears loneliness often ends up alone. The person who fears failure often fails repeatedly. This is not cosmic irony or bad luck. This is the servo mechanism doing exactly what it was designed to do. Fear is a particularly powerful emotion, and when you combine a clear mental image with strong emotion, you supercharge the programming of the guidance system. The unsuccessful person inadvertently programs their servo mechanism for failure by dwelling on their fears, while the successful person deliberately programs their servo mechanism for success by dwelling on their goals. Both are using the same mechanism. Both are following the same law. The difference is in the consciousness and intentionality with which they use it. Nightingale understood that once you grasp this principle, once you truly understand that your mind is a goal-seeking mechanism that will take you wherever you point it, you can never again claim to be a victim of circumstances. You might be temporarily defeated by external events, but you are never permanently defeated unless you accept defeat in your thinking. The moment you change your dominant thought, you change your destination, and the servo mechanism immediately begins navigating toward the new coordinates. The beauty of this cybernetic model is that it removes the burden of figuring out every step of the journey. You don't need to know how you will reach your goal. You only need to know what your goal is and hold it clearly in your mind. The guidance system handles the how. Just as a missile doesn't need to plot every inch of its trajectory before launch, it simply needs a target and the ability to make continuous corrections. You don't need to see the entire path before you start. You need a definite target and the faith to trust that the servo mechanism will guide you. This is why Nightingale emphasized the absolute necessity of having a clear, written, specific goal. A vague wish like, I want to be successful or I want to be happy is not a target. It is a fog. The guidance system cannot lock onto fog, but a specific target like, I will earn $75,000 this year by providing accounting services to small businesses, or I will lose 20 pounds in the next 4 months by following a disciplined nutrition plan. These are coordinates the servo mechanism can use. The more specific, the more vivid, the more emotionally charged the mental image, the more powerfully the guidance system engages. And once it engages, success becomes not a matter of luck or extraordinary effort, but an automatic function of a properly programmed system, exactly as Nightingale promised. The machine has no conscience, but it has perfect loyalty. It will take you exactly where you tell it to go, and it will never stop working until either the target is reached or you change the target. This is the strangest secret, and it is the difference between the ship with a captain and the ship without one. Wallace D. Wattles, in his seminal work, The Science of Getting Rich, introduced the concept of thinking stuff, a formless, intelligent substance that permeates the universe and responds to human thought by manifesting corresponding forms in physical reality. Wattles wrote in the mystical language of his era, speaking of an original substance from which all things are made, a cosmic intelligence that receives impressions from human minds and creates accordingly. His work was profound but esoteric, accessible primarily to those willing to accept premises about universal consciousness and creative energy that sound foreign to the modern, scientifically minded ear. Earl Nightingale performed an invaluable service to humanity by taking this same essential truth and translating it into the language of the 20th century. He stripped away the metaphysical terminology and presented the core principle in language that a businessman, a housewife, a factory worker, or a student could immediately understand and apply. When Wattles says, thought creates, and when Nightingale says we become what we think about, they are describing the same fundamental law of mind, but Nightingale brings it down from the clouds of mysticism and plants it firmly in the soil of practical application. Wattles is the mystic prophet. Nightingale is the broadcaster, the translator, the bridge between ancient wisdom and modern life. Where Wattles requires you to contemplate the nature of formless substance, Nightingale simply asks you to observe the law in action in your own life and the lives of people around you. This translation from the esoteric to the practical is not a dilution of the truth. It is an amplification of its usefulness. Nightingale understood that most people would never read Wattles, would never study Emerson or Marcus Aurelius or the Bhagavad Gita, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked time, inclination, or the philosophical framework to penetrate those texts. So Nightingale did the penetration for them. He spent decades studying the great works of philosophy, religion, and psychology, extracting the common threads, identifying the universal principles, and then repackaging those principles in a format that could reach the masses. His genius was not in discovering something new, but in making something old accessible. When he tells you that your thoughts determine your destiny, he is conveying the same truth that Buddha taught, that Jesus taught, that Lao Tzu taught, that every enlightened teacher throughout history has taught, but he is conveying it in the vocabulary of mid-20th century America, using analogies from business and navigation and daily life that his audience could immediately grasp. The thinking stuff that Wattles describes is real, whether you call it the subconscious mind, the universal intelligence, the quantum field, or simply the law of attraction. The name doesn't matter. The function is what matters, and Nightingale focused relentlessly on function. He showed people not just that the law exists, but how to use it, how to cooperate with it, how to become a conscious creator rather than an unconscious victim. The connection between Wattles' mystical framework and Nightingale's practical application becomes clear when you understand that both are describing the same process from different vantage points. Wattles describes the cosmic mechanism, the way thought impresses itself upon the formless substance and causes that substance to take form. Nightingale describes the personal mechanism, the way your dominant thoughts program your subconscious servo mechanism and cause your actions, perceptions, and circumstances to align with those thoughts. These are not contradictory models, they are complementary perspectives on the same reality. Wattles gives you the theological understanding, Nightingale gives you the operational manual. Wattles explains why it works. Nightingale explains how to make it work for you. The person who studies both gains a profound advantage. They understand the cosmic principle, and they possess the practical technique. But if you could study only one, Nightingale is the more immediately useful, because he takes you by the hand and walks you through the daily mental disciplines that activate the law. He doesn't ask you to believe in formless substance. He asks you to conduct an experiment with your own thoughts and observe the results. This empirical approach, this emphasis on testable results, is what made Nightingale's message so powerful and so credible. He was not asking for faith. He was presenting a hypothesis and inviting you to test it. And when you test it, when you actually control your dominant thoughts for 30 days and observe what happens, you discover that the hypothesis is not a hypothesis at all. It is a law, as reliable as gravity, and your belief or disbelief is irrelevant to its operation. The synthesis of Wattles and Nightingale creates a complete picture. The universe is mental in nature, responsive to thought, and your individual mind is not separate from this universal mind, but connected to it, capable of impressing your desires upon it and receiving manifestations in return. But this is not passive wishing. This is active, disciplined, focused thinking, combined with purposeful action. Nightingale never promised that thinking alone would produce results. He promised that right thinking combined with right action would produce inevitable results. This is the critical distinction that separates practical metaphysics from wishful thinking. The person who understands Wattles knows that they are working with a creative force. The person who understands Nightingale knows how to direct that force through daily mental discipline. Together, these teachings form a complete system for the conscious creation of your life circumstances. And this system is not theory. It is the documented method by which every great achiever, whether they articulated it philosophically or simply practiced it instinctively, has ever accomplished anything of significance. You are thinking right now, in this moment, as you process these words. The question is whether you are thinking by default, allowing random mental patterns to set your course, or whether you are thinking by design, deliberately programming your guidance system toward a chosen destination. Nightingale's great gift is that he made the choice conscious and the method clear. James Allen, in his classic meditation, As a Man Thinketh, emphasized the absolute necessity of mental discipline, of taking control of the thought stream that flows through consciousness every waking moment. Allen wrote with the precision of a poet and the authority of a master, but his work was primarily diagnostic and inspirational. He told you that you must control your mind, and he explained why this control was the foundation of all achievement and all character. But he did not provide a specific, measurable method for developing that control. Earl Nightingale took Allen's principle and operationalized it through what he called the 30-day test. And this test is perhaps the most practical application of mental discipline ever devised. The concept is elegantly simple. For 30 consecutive days, you will think only about what you want, and you will refuse to think about what you don't want. For 30 days, you will hold a clear mental image of your goal, and every time a negative thought, a fear, a doubt, or a worry attempts to enter your consciousness, you will immediately replace it with the positive image of your goal. This is not positive thinking in the shallow, superficial sense of simply repeating affirmations while your subconscious remains unconvinced. This is mental discipline in the sense that a martial artist practices discipline or a musician practices discipline. It is the deliberate, conscious control of your mental faculties, repeated consistently until it becomes habitual, until your default mental state is aligned with your goals rather than with your fears. The 30-day test is brilliant in its psychological design because 30 days is long enough to produce measurable results, but short enough to be achievable by someone who has never practiced mental discipline before. Nightingale understood human nature. He knew that if he told people, "Control your thoughts for the rest of your life," they would feel overwhelmed and never start. But 30 days, anyone can commit to 30 days. It is a finite challenge, a clear goal, a test with a defined beginning and end. And yet, 30 days is sufficient time for the servo mechanism to lock on to the new target, for the subconscious to begin rearranging your perceptions and actions, for external circumstances to begin shifting in response to your internal shift. The genius of the test is that it provides empirical proof. Nightingale is not asking you to take his word for it. He is challenging you to conduct an experiment. Control your thoughts for 30 days. Maintain a clear mental image of a specific goal. Refuse to entertain doubts or fears, and then observe what happens. The results will convince you far more powerfully than any amount of philosophical argument, because you will have experienced the law in operation. You will have watched opportunities appear. You will have noticed that you suddenly encounter the exact book or person or idea you needed. You will have observed your own behavior changing, becoming more confident, more purposeful, more effective. This is the difference between intellectual understanding and embodied knowledge. The 30-day test is also the bridge between Allen's discipline and Nightingale's practical system. Allen tells you that you are the master of your thoughts and therefore the creator of your character and your circumstances. This is profound truth, but it is truth at the level of principle. Nightingale takes that principle and gives you a method. 30 days of controlled thinking, focused on a single definite goal, with immediate rejection of any contrary thought. This is boot camp for the mental soldier. In the military, boot camp takes an undisciplined civilian and transforms them into a disciplined soldier through repetitive practice under controlled conditions. The 30-day test performs the same function for your mind. Before the test, you are an undisciplined thinker, your mental state largely determined by external circumstances, by the news you consume, by the opinions of people around you, by your habitual patterns of worry and doubt. After the test, if you complete it honestly and rigorously, you are a different person. You have discovered that you can control your thoughts, that you can maintain a chosen mental state regardless of external circumstances, and most importantly, that this control produces tangible, measurable results in your external life. This discovery is transformative because it shifts your identity. You are no longer a victim of circumstances. You are a creator of circumstances. You are no longer subject to the random winds of fortune. You are the captain of a guided vessel. The difficulty of the 30-day test is precisely what makes it valuable. Nightingale warned that most people would fail the test, not because it is complicated, but because it requires constant vigilance. You will be tempted dozens of times each day to worry, to complain, to focus on problems rather than solutions, to entertain doubts about whether your goal is achievable. Each time you succumb to that temptation, you must start the 30 days over again. This is not cruelty. This is precision. The servo mechanism doesn't respond to half-hearted effort or intermittent focus. It responds to dominant thought patterns. If you think positively about your goal for 29 days, but spend the 30th day in fear and doubt, you have not completed the test because you have not established a dominant thought pattern. The law requires dominance. Your positive thoughts must outnumber and overpower your negative thoughts to the point where the positive becomes the default, the automatic, the habitual. This is why the test must be rigorous, why you cannot make exceptions, why you must be willing to start over if you fail. But here is the profound truth that Nightingale discovered. If you succeed in completing the test once, you will never be the same person again. You will have proven to yourself beyond any doubt that you possess the power to shape your reality through controlled thinking. And once you possess that proof, once you have experienced the law in operation, you become unstoppable, because you know that any goal you can define clearly and hold in your mind consistently will eventually manifest in your experience. This is not faith. This is knowledge gained through direct experience, and it is the most liberating knowledge any human being can possess. Success is not free, and Earl Nightingale never promised that it was. In an era saturated with messages of instant gratification and effortless achievement, Nightingale's voice cut through the noise with a sober, masculine truth. Everything worthwhile has a price, and success has a very specific price that must be paid in full, in advance, with no credit terms available. But here is what makes Nightingale's teaching so valuable. He defined the price clearly. He did not leave you guessing about what success would cost or wondering if you possessed the currency to pay it. The price of success, according to Nightingale, is not primarily financial capital, though money may be required for certain ventures. The price is not primarily physical labor, though effort is certainly involved. The price of success is mental labor, the sustained, disciplined effort of holding the image of what you want in your mind while the entire world, with its chorus of doubters and its parade of contrary evidence, tells you that your goal is impossible. This is the payment the universe demands, and it is the payment that 95% of people refuse to make. They want success, but they are not willing to pay the mental price. They are not willing to maintain their vision when circumstances seem to contradict it. They are not willing to think about their goal when their current reality mocks that goal. They want the destination without the navigation, the arrival without the journey, and so they drift and they crash on the rocks and they wonder why success eluded them. The mental labor Nightingale describes is more difficult than physical labor because it is invisible and therefore receives no social validation. When you work physically, people can see your effort. They can observe you sweating, straining, building, creating, and they offer you acknowledgement for your industry. But when you work mentally, when you spend your early mornings visualizing your goals, when you use your commute to think about solutions rather than problems, when you lie in bed at night, holding the image of success in your mind instead of rehearsing your fears, no one sees this labor. You receive no praise, no encouragement, no external validation. In fact, if you speak about your goals before they manifest, you often encounter mockery or discouragement from people who have never paid the mental price and therefore do not believe it is possible. This is the first test of whether you are willing to pay the price. Can you do the invisible work without applause, without recognition, without immediate evidence that it is producing results? The person who requires external validation before they will maintain their mental discipline is the person who will never complete the 30-day test and will never activate their guidance system. The price must be paid in the currency of faith, not blind faith in some external power, but faith in the law of mind, faith that the servo mechanism will respond to sustained, focused thought, even when the external evidence has not yet appeared. The second component of the price is the refusal to let the guidance system drift. This requires constant vigilance, a mental alertness that most people have never developed because they have never been taught that it matters. Your guidance system is being programmed every moment, either by your conscious direction or by default, through whatever thoughts happen to drift through your mind. The person who pays the price of success takes responsibility for every thought, or at least for the dominant pattern of their thoughts. They cannot control the first arising of a thought. A worry might pop into consciousness, a doubt might appear, a fear might surface, but they can control what they do with that thought. Do they entertain it, dwell on it, give it attention and energy, or do they immediately recognize it as contrary to their programmed destination and replace it with the image of their goal? This split-second choice, made dozens or hundreds of times each day, is the difference between success and failure. The unsuccessful person sees this as exhausting, as too much work, as unreasonable. The successful person sees this as the price, accepts it, and pays it gladly, because they understand that the alternative, drifting through life without direction, arriving at destinations they never chose, is far more exhausting and far more costly in the long run. Nightingale observed that most people will spend more mental energy worrying about problems than they would spend solving them, more time complaining about their circumstances than they would spend changing them. The price of success is not higher than the price of failure. It is simply paid in a different currency, and it is paid consciously rather than unconsciously. There is also a profound psychological dimension to paying the price. You must hold the image of success while living in the reality of not yet success, and this creates a tension that most people cannot tolerate. When you set a goal to earn $100,000 per year, but you are currently earning $40,000, there is a gap, and you must live in that gap while the servo mechanism works to close it. During this period, your current circumstances will seem to contradict your goal. Your bank account will not reflect the image in your mind. Your lifestyle will not match your vision. People around you will judge you based on where you are, not where you are going. This gap is the crucible in which your commitment is tested. Do you abandon your vision because current reality does not yet reflect it? Or do you hold the vision even more firmly, understanding that the vision is the cause and the changed reality will be the effect? The person who cannot tolerate this tension, who requires their external circumstances to validate their internal vision before they will maintain that vision, has disqualified themselves from success. They have announced that they will not pay the price, but the person who can live in the gap, who can hold the image of abundance while temporarily experiencing lack, who can think about success while temporarily living in limitation, that person has paid the price and the servo mechanism must respond. The payment is the mental discipline. The receipt is the manifested goal. And the transaction is governed by a law that never fails, though it may test your patience, your faith, and your commitment before it delivers the goods. Earl Nightingale was deeply influenced by Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay Compensation, and this influence shows clearly in Nightingale's teaching about the relationship between service and reward. Emerson articulated a law that governs all human affairs. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every gift, there is a corresponding return. For every service rendered, there is compensation received. This is not morality or wishful thinking. This is metaphysics, the structure of reality itself. Nightingale took this Emersonian principle and made it the cornerstone of his philosophy of success. Your rewards in life will always be in exact proportion to your service. Not your effort, not your intentions, not your needs or your desires. Your service, the value you deliver to others, the problems you solve, the needs you meet. This is the most liberating and the most demanding truth about success, because it removes all ambiguity about how to succeed. You want greater rewards? Provide greater service. You want more money? Solve bigger problems for more people. You want recognition, influence, security, abundance? Increase the value you deliver to the marketplace of human needs. The law is mathematical in its precision, and you cannot hack it, cheat it, or circumvent it. The universe keeps perfect books, and the ledger always balances. Most people reverse the equation. They want the reward first, and then they will consider providing the service. They want the high salary before they develop the skills that justify it. They want the successful business before they have served customers. They want recognition before they have achieved something worthy of recognition. This reversed thinking is the mark of the 95%, and it explains why they remain in perpetual frustration. They are trying to collect compensation without making a deposit, to withdraw from an account they have never funded. Nightingale understood that success is not an advance, it is a reimbursement. You provide value first, often for much longer and with much less immediate return than you think is fair, and then the compensation arrives. But it always arrives, because the law of compensation is as reliable as the law of gravity. You cannot see gravity, but you trust it completely because you have observed its consistent operation. Similarly, you cannot see the law of compensation at work in the moment, but if you observe the lives of successful people, you will see that every one of them, without exception, has provided enormous service to others. The amount of their success is directly proportional to the amount and quality of their service. The wealthy person has served many people or has served a few people in extremely valuable ways. The poor person has served few people or has provided service of minimal value. This is not a moral judgment, it is a measurement. The law of compensation also explains why get-rich-quick schemes always fail and why shortcuts lead to dead ends. When you attempt to gain reward without providing equivalent service, you are attempting to violate a fundamental law of the universe, and the universe will not be violated. You might succeed temporarily through deception, manipulation, or exploitation, but the law will eventually balance the books. The compensation you gained without earning will be taken back, often with interest in the form of consequences you did not anticipate. This is why Nightingale emphasized ethical service, not just service in the abstract. You must provide genuine value, solve real problems, meet authentic needs. You must serve in ways that make people's lives better, easier, richer, more fulfilling. When you do this, the compensation flows to you not through manipulation or force, but through natural attraction, because people voluntarily give their resources to those who serve them well. The person who provides exceptional service does not need to chase success. Success chases them. Opportunities appear, referrals multiply, reputation builds, income increases. All of this happens automatically, not through luck but through the operation of the law of compensation, responding to the value provided. The most empowering aspect of this principle is that it gives you complete control over your level of success. You cannot control the economy, you cannot control your industry, you cannot control what other people do or what advantages they possess, but you can absolutely control how much service you provide and how well you provide it. You can increase your skills, you can expand your knowledge, you can deepen your commitment to excellence, you can serve more people, you can solve bigger problems. Every one of these factors is under your direct control, and every one of them directly influences your compensation. Nightingale demolished the excuse-making that cripples most people's potential by showing them that they are not victims of circumstances, but beneficiaries or victims of the service they provide. If you are not earning what you want to earn, the solution is not to complain about your employer, your economy, or your luck. The solution is to ask yourself, how can I provide greater service? How can I become more valuable? What problems can I solve that I am not currently solving? When you shift your focus from what you can get to what you can give, you align yourself with the law of compensation, and the servo mechanism immediately begins navigating toward greater abundance. This is not spiritual bypassing or naive optimism. This is the hardest-edged, most practical wisdom ever articulated. Service is the price. Compensation is the receipt. And the merchant who understands this principle will never lack for customers or for wealth, because they understand that you cannot trick the GPS of the universe. You can only program it correctly and then let it take you to the destination that your service has earned. Most people live their lives clutching the shore, their hands white-knuckled around the safety of the familiar, their feet digging into the sand of certainty, terrified to release their grip and trust the river that flows before them. Earl Nightingale observed this universal pattern of self-imposed limitation and offered a radical solution. Let go. Trust the river. Once your guidance system is properly set, once you have programmed your servo mechanism with a clear, definite goal and committed to the mental discipline of holding that goal in your dominant thoughts, you don't need to row upstream against the current of reality. You need only to steer, to make intelligent adjustments, to correct your course when necessary. The river itself, the current of universal intelligence, the flow of the formless substance that Wallace Wattles described, the momentum of the law of attraction, will carry you. But this requires something that terrifies the average person. It requires letting go of control, or rather, it requires understanding what you can control and what you cannot. You can control your thoughts, your goals, your service, your effort. You cannot control the timing, the method, the specific path by which your goals manifest. When you try to control these latter elements, when you insist that success must come through this particular door or that particular method, you are fighting the current instead of using it. You are rowing when you should be steering. The metaphor of the river is profound because it captures the paradox at the heart of Nightingale's teaching. You must be both active and receptive, both disciplined and trusting, both determined and flexible. You must set your goal with absolute clarity and hold it with unwavering commitment. And then you must release your attachment to how that goal will be achieved. This is not passivity. This is intelligent action, guided by faith in the law. The person who clutches the shore is acting from fear, not from faith. They believe that if they let go, they will drown, that if they release control, chaos will ensue. But Nightingale understood that the opposite is true. Holding on to the shore is what prevents you from reaching your destination. The shore represents your comfort zone, your current circumstances, your familiar patterns, and as long as you cling to these, you cannot move forward. The river represents the dynamic, flowing, intelligent force of life itself, and it is always moving toward greater expression, greater abundance, greater fulfillment. When you align yourself with this force, when you set your goal, program your guidance system, and then trust the process, you tap into a power far greater than your individual effort could ever generate. This teaching intersects powerfully with Wattles's concept of the formless substance. Wattles described a pervasive, intelligent substance that fills all space and responds to human thought by taking the form that corresponds to that thought. If you can accept this concept, and the evidence for it is overwhelming when you observe the correlation between what people think about and what they experience, then letting go of the shore is simply recognizing that this formless substance is already carrying you. You are not separate from the river. You are in the river, you have always been in the river, and the river has always been moving. The question is whether you will align your movement with the river's current or exhaust yourself fighting against it. The person who sets a clear goal and then tries to force every detail of its manifestation is fighting the current. They are saying, "I know better than the universal intelligence how this should unfold." This is arrogance masquerading as determination. The person who sets a clear goal and then remains alert for opportunities, who takes the actions that feel right and avoids the actions that feel forced, who follows their intuition while maintaining their vision, that person is steering with the current, and their journey is characterized by synchronicity, by the appearance of helpful people and fortunate circumstances that seem almost magical, but are actually the natural operation of the guidance system working in harmony with the universal flow. The courage to let go of the shore is not recklessness. It is trust in a law that has proven itself reliable throughout human history. Every great achievement, every significant innovation, every leap forward in human civilization has been made by someone who released their grip on certainty and trusted a vision they could not yet see fully manifested. Nightingale is asking you to join this lineage of courageous creators, not by abandoning reason or discipline, but by combining discipline with trust. Program the guidance system with precision, hold your vision with unwavering focus, take intelligent action toward your goal, and then trust that the servo mechanism, working in conjunction with the universal intelligence, will close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. The 5% who succeed are those who have learned to let go of the shore. The 95% who fail are those who spend their entire lives holding on, mistaking their self-imposed limitation for safety, never discovering that the river was always ready to carry them to shores more magnificent than any they could have clung to. The ship with a captain does not cling to the dock. It casts off, trusts the instruments, and sets sail toward the distant horizon, knowing that the guidance system will navigate around every storm and deliver it to the intended port. You are that ship. The river is waiting. The only question is whether you have the courage to release your grip and trust the current. Earl Nightingale's most disturbing and most enlightening statistic is this: out of 100 people who start even at age 25, by age 65, only 5 will be financially independent, 5 will still be working because they have to, 36 will be dead, and 54 will be broke, dependent on family, friends, or government assistance. 5% succeed, 95% fail. This is not a recent phenomenon caused by modern economic conditions. This has been the ratio throughout recorded human history, across all cultures, all economic systems, all time periods. The ratio is consistent because it reflects something fundamental about human nature, not about external circumstances. Nightingale asked the essential question: why? If success were primarily a matter of intelligence, we would not see such a stark divide, because intelligence is distributed relatively evenly across the population. If success were primarily a matter of opportunity, we would see regional variations, but instead we see the 5-95 split everywhere. If success were primarily a matter of luck, we would see randomness, but instead we see consistency. The answer Nightingale arrived at is both simple and devastating. 95% of people fail because 95% of people do not think. They conform. They follow the crowd. They accept the dominant narratives of their culture without question. They allow their thoughts to be shaped by television, by social media, by the opinions of people who are themselves part of the 95%. They have never engaged in the mental labor of defining their own goals, programming their own guidance system, and holding their own vision against the tide of cultural conditioning. To activate your guidance system and join the 5%, you must commit what Nightingale called the ultimate act of rebellion. You must stop conforming. This does not mean being contrarian for its own sake or rejecting all social norms. It means thinking independently, making decisions based on your own goals, rather than on what your neighbors are doing. The average person looks at their peer group to determine what is possible, what is acceptable, what is realistic. If everyone around them earns $40,000 per year, they conclude that $40,000 is the reasonable expectation. If everyone in their family went to a particular type of school, they follow the same path. If everyone in their social circle shares certain beliefs about money, success, or what is achievable, they adopt those beliefs without examination. This is conformity, and it is the prison that holds the 95% in perpetual mediocrity. Nightingale understood that success requires breaking this mirror of conformity, shattering it completely, and looking instead at your internal compass. What do you want? Not what does your family want for you? Not what does society expect of you? Not what would impress your high school classmates? What do you actually want for your life? When you answer this question honestly, when you set your goals based on your authentic desires rather than on social conditioning, you begin the journey toward the 5%. The mirror of conformity is seductive because it offers the comfort of belonging. When you think like everyone else, act like everyone else, and want what everyone else wants, you fit in. You're accepted. You receive approval from your peer group. But Nightingale asks you to consider the cost of this approval. It is your potential, your individuality, your one shot at creating a life of meaning and abundance. The 95% trade their birthright for a bowl of porridge called fitting in. The 5% recognize that the approval of people who have not achieved what you want to achieve is worthless as a guide to action. This is not arrogance. This is logic. If you want to become financially independent, why would you take financial advice from people who are broke? If you want to build a successful business, why would you let the opinions of people who have never built a business determine your actions? Yet this is exactly what most people do. They give veto power over their dreams to people who have never pursued their own dreams. They allow the doubts and fears of the 95% to infect their thinking, and then they wonder why they end up in the 95%. The 5% have learned to be selectively deaf. They listen to mentors who have achieved what they want to achieve. They study the principles that have been proven across time and culture. They trust the guidance system they have programmed, not the random opinions of the crowd. Breaking the mirror of conformity also requires solitude, not in the sense of physical isolation, but in the sense of mental independence. You must be willing to spend time alone with your thoughts, defining your goals, visualizing your future, programming your guidance system, even when this makes you different from the people around you. The 95% are terrified of this solitude because they have never developed an internal compass. They rely entirely on external validation to know if they are on the right path. The 5% have built such a strong internal compass that they can navigate confidently, even when everyone around them questions their direction. This is the essence of what Nightingale meant by joining the 5% Club. It is not an elite group defined by wealth or status, though those often follow. It is a mental stance, a commitment to independent thinking, a refusal to let the mediocrity of the masses determine your ceiling. You join this club the moment you set your own goals, program your own guidance system, and commit to the mental discipline of maintaining your vision regardless of what anyone else thinks. From that moment forward, you are on a different trajectory than the 95%, and if you maintain that discipline through the 30-day test and beyond, you will inevitably experience different results. The ship with a captain does not follow the ships without captains, even if those rudderless vessels outnumber it 95-5. The ship with a captain sets its own course, trusts its guidance system, and sails toward a destination the drifting masses will never see. This is not cruelty toward the 95%. This is respect for the law and commitment to your own potential. You cannot save people who will not save themselves, but you can become living proof that the law works, and perhaps your example will inspire others to break their own mirrors and set their own course. You are the captain. This is not metaphor. This is diagnosis. The ship is your life, your thoughts, your actions, your circumstances, your destiny. The engines are running. Your mind is generating thoughts constantly. Your body is capable of action. Your time is passing whether you use it wisely or squander it. The ocean is waiting. The universe of opportunity surrounds you in this moment, vast and navigable, indifferent to whether you succeed or fail, but responsive to the coordinates you set. Every element necessary for success is present. The only variable, the only question that determines whether your life becomes a triumphant voyage or a wreck on the rocks is this: are you captaining this ship, or is it drifting? Earl Nightingale devoted his life to answering this question for millions of people, and his answer was unambiguous. You must take command. You must set the destination, program the guidance system, maintain course discipline, and refuse to abandon the helm when storms arise. The 95% drift because they have never understood that captaincy is their responsibility and their privilege. They wait for someone else to give them a destination, for circumstances to become favorable, for luck to intervene. They are waiting for a captain to appear, never realizing that they are the captain, that they have always been the captain, that the helm has always been theirs to take. The synthesis of everything Earl Nightingale taught can be compressed into a sequence of actions so clear that a child could understand them, yet so demanding that the 95% will never execute them. First, decide what you want. Not what you should want, not what would please others, but what you authentically desire for your life. Write it down. Make it specific, measurable, vivid. This is your destination, your port, your coordinates. Second, impress this goal upon your subconscious mind through constant, repetitive, emotional visualization. Think about your goal when you wake up, throughout the day, before you sleep. Hold the image in your mind with such consistency that it becomes more real to you than your current circumstances. This programs the guidance system. Third, take action. The servo mechanism will guide you toward your goal, but it cannot move a stationary ship. You must provide forward motion through intelligent, purposeful action in the direction of your goal. Do not wait for perfect conditions or complete knowledge. Start moving and the guidance system will correct your course as you go. Fourth, serve others. Provide value, solve problems, make yourself useful to the world. The law of compensation will ensure that your service is rewarded in exact proportion to its quantity and quality. Fifth, maintain your mental discipline through the 30-day test and beyond. Guard your thoughts as you would guard a precious treasure, because your thoughts are programming your future. Refuse to entertain fear, doubt, or limitation. Replace every negative thought with the image of your goal. This is the price of success, and it must be paid daily. Where are you going? This is the question Nightingale posed to audiences around the world, and it is the question that separates the captain from the drifter. The person who cannot answer this question with clarity and conviction is adrift, regardless of how busy they appear, regardless of how many actions they take. Busyness without direction is merely thrashing. It exhausts you without moving you toward anything meaningful. The person who can answer this question, who knows their destination, who has written it down, who visualizes it daily, who has programmed their guidance system with this clear target, that person is captaining their ship. They may encounter storms. They will certainly face obstacles. They might be temporarily blown off course, but the guidance system will bring them back on track, and every course correction brings them closer to their destination. This is the power of knowing where you are going. It transforms random motion into purposeful navigation. It converts time from an enemy that ages you into an ally that delivers you to your chosen shore. The 5% know where they are going. They can tell you their destination without hesitation, without vagueness, without qualifier. Ask a member of the 95% where they are going, and you will receive uncertainty, wishes masquerading as goals, or the deflating admission that they don't know. This admission of ignorance is not honesty. It is abdication of captaincy. It is the decision to drift, and drifting has only one outcome: the rocks at the harbor's edge. Earl Nightingale provided what may be the most elegant and most demanding definition of success ever articulated. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Parse this definition carefully, because every word carries weight. Success is not the destination reached. It is the progressive realization, the journey toward, the daily closing of the gap between where you are and where you intend to be. This means you are successful the moment you set a clear goal and begin moving toward it. You do not have to wait until you earn the $1 million, write the book, build the business, or achieve the final outcome. You are successful today if you are progressing toward your ideal today. This definition liberates you from the tyranny of not yet, from the belief that you must wait until some future date to consider yourself successful. But Nightingale does not stop with progressive realization. He adds of a worthy ideal, and this qualifier is crucial. Not every goal makes you successful. The progressive realization of a destructive goal, an unethical goal, a goal that harms others or diminishes yourself. This is not success. This is degradation masquerading as achievement. The worthy ideal requirement forces you to examine not just what you want, but why you want it and what impact its achievement will have on yourself and others. What makes an ideal worthy? Nightingale suggested several criteria. A worthy ideal serves others, not just yourself. It requires growth, demanding that you become more than you currently are in order to achieve it. It aligns with your values and your authentic self, not with cultural conditioning or the approval of others. It inspires you, calling forth your best effort and deepest commitment. When you measure your goals against these criteria, you often discover that what you thought you wanted was actually someone else's definition of success imposed upon you. The person who pursues wealth simply to impress others is not pursuing a worthy ideal. They are pursuing validation, and no amount of money will satisfy that need. The person who pursues wealth in order to gain freedom, to provide for family, to fund meaningful projects, to serve causes they believe in, that person is pursuing a worthy ideal, and the money becomes a tool for something larger than ego. This is why Nightingale always emphasized that you must choose your own goals, that you must look inside yourself rather than at your neighbors to determine what constitutes success for you. The worthy ideal for one person might be raising children with strong character. For another, It might be building a company that employs hundreds. For another, it might be creating art that elevates culture. There is no universal worthy ideal, only your worthy ideal, but it must meet the test of worthiness. Does it serve? Does it require growth? Does it align with your values? Does it inspire you? The progressive realization component of Nightingale's definition means that success is not binary. You are not either successful or unsuccessful. Success is a spectrum, a continuum, a daily practice. Every day that you take action toward your worthy ideal, every day that you maintain your mental discipline, every day that you serve others and improve yourself, you are successful that day. This daily definition of success is psychologically powerful because it provides immediate reinforcement. You do not have to wait 5 years to know if you are succeeding. You can evaluate success today by asking, did I progress toward my ideal today? Did I hold my vision? Did I take action? Did I serve? Did I maintain my mental discipline? If the answer is yes, you were successful today, regardless of external results, regardless of how far you still have to travel. And if you are successful today and tomorrow and the next day, the compound effect of these daily successes will inevitably produce the external manifestation of your ideal. This is the guidance system in operation. Success is not a lightning bolt of fortune that strikes randomly. It is the accumulated result of progressive daily realization. The person who understands this becomes unstoppable because they are no longer waiting for success to happen. They are creating it daily through the disciplined practice of purposeful thought and action. The message Nightingale offers is ultimately one of profound empowerment. You are not a victim of circumstances, genetics, economics, or luck. You are the operator of the most sophisticated guidance system ever created, the human mind. And this system, when properly programmed and maintained, will navigate you to any destination you choose. The 95% fail not because they lack this system, but because they never learn to operate it. They are like people sitting in a Ferrari, complaining about how far they have to walk, never realizing that they possess a machine capable of incredible speed if they would only learn to drive it. Nightingale taught people to drive. He gave them the keys, the manual, the map, and the encouragement. But he never promised it would be easy. He promised it would be worth it. He promised that the price of success, the mental labor, the discipline, the courage to break from the crowd, was far less than the price of failure, which is regret, limitation, and the gnawing knowledge that you never discovered what you could have become. You possess this guidance system right now. It is active in this moment, programmed by your dominant thoughts, navigating toward whatever target you have consciously or unconsciously set. The strangest secret is that most people never consciously set the target, and then they wonder why they end up in destinations they never chose. The challenge Earl Nightingale offers is not complicated, but it is complete. He asks you to conduct an experiment that will prove or disprove everything you have learned in this exploration. For 30 consecutive days, you will think only about what you want. You will maintain a clear, vivid mental image of your worthy ideal. Every time a thought of fear, doubt, limitation, or complaint attempts to enter your consciousness, you will immediately replace it with the image of your goal. You will write your goal down and read it multiple times daily. You will visualize yourself already in possession of what you seek. You will take purposeful action toward your goal every day. You will serve others with increased dedication. You will refuse to speak negatively about your circumstances or to entertain the doubts of others. And if you fail, if you allow negative thinking to dominate even for a day, you will start the 30 days over again. This is the test. This is the proving ground. This is where 95% of people who hear about the test will disqualify themselves because they will not maintain the discipline, or they will make excuses, or they will conclude after a few days of half-hearted effort that the principle doesn't work. But the 5% who complete the test honestly and rigorously will discover something that changes their lives forever. The law is real. The guidance system responds. Your thoughts do create your reality. And once you possess this knowledge, once you have proven it through direct experience, you become dangerous in the best possible sense. Dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to limitation, dangerous to every excuse and every fear that has held you back. You become a captain who knows how to navigate, and the entire ocean becomes your realm. Set the coordinates. This is your first action. Decide what you want. Not vaguely, not, I want to be successful or I want to be happy, but specifically, how much money do you want to earn? By when? What career do you want to build? What person do you want to become? What impact do you want to have? Write it down. Make it so clear that you could describe it to a child. This is your port, your destination, your target. The servo mechanism cannot lock onto fog. It requires a clear image. Give it that image now. Engage the autopilot. This is your second action. Begin the 30-day test today in this moment. You have heard the principle. You understand the law. You know what must be done. The only remaining question is whether you will do it. Will you maintain your mental discipline for 30 days? Will you hold your vision when circumstances seem to contradict it? Will you guard your thoughts as a soldier guards his post? The autopilot is not external to you. It is the servo mechanism of your subconscious mind, and it engages the moment you give it a clear target and maintain that target through disciplined, repetitive, emotional thought. Your autopilot is standing by, waiting for coordinates. Give the command. Write in the comments, I know where I am going. This is not mere affirmation, this is declaration. When you write these words, you are announcing to yourself, to the universe, to the formless intelligence that responds to thought, that you are no longer drifting. You have chosen your destination, you have taken command of your ship, you have programmed your guidance system. You are now part of the 5%, not because you have arrived at your destination, but because you know where you are going and you are moving toward it. This declaration is the line of demarcation between your old life and your new life, between the person who drifted and the person who captains, between the ship without a direction and the guided missile locked onto its target. Let the journey start. Not tomorrow. Not when circumstances improve. Not when you feel ready. Now. The engines are running. The ocean is waiting. The 5% are already sailing. The question is not whether you can join them. The guidance system that made them successful is the same system you possess. The question is whether you will use it. Earl Nightingale has given you the strangest secret. He has shown you the law. He has outlined the test. He has defined the price. He has promised you the results. The rest is up to you. You are the captain. Where are you going?